The International Phonetic Alphabet is an alphabetic system of phonetic notation based primarily on the Latin alphabet. It was devised by the International Phonetic Association as a standardized representation of the sounds of oral language. The IPA is used by lexicographers, foreign language students and teachers, linguists, speech-language pathologists, singers, actors, constructed language creators, and translators. The IPA is designed to represent only those qualities of speech that are part of oral language: phones, phonemes, intonation, and the separation of words and syllables. To represent additional qualities of speech, such as tooth gnashing, lisping, and sounds made with a cleft palate, an extended set of symbols called the extensions to the International Phonetic Alphabet may be used. IPA symbols are composed of one or more elements of two basic types, letters and diacritics. For example, the sound of the English letter T may be transcribed in IPA with a single letter, or with a letter plus diacritics, depending on how precise one wishes to be. Often, slashes are used to signal broader phonemic transcription. Thus, T is less specific than, and could refer to, either or, depending on the context and language. Occasionally letters or diacritics are added, removed, or modified by the International Phonetic Association. As of the most recent change in 2005, there are 107 letters, 52 diacritics, and 4 prosodic marks in the IPA. These are shown in the current Ipa chart, posted below in this article and at the website of the IPA. History. In 1886, a group of French and British language teachers, led by the French linguist Paul Parsi, formed what would come to be known from 1897 onwards as the International Phonetic Association. Their original alphabet was based on a spelling reform for English known as the Romic alphabet, but in order to make it usable for other languages, the values of the symbols were allowed to vary from language to language. For example, the sound was originally represented with the letter C in English but with the digraph CH in French. However, in 1888, the alphabet was revised so as to be uniform across languages, thus providing the base for all future revisions. The idea of making the IPA was first suggested by Otto Jespersen in a letter to Paul Parsi. It was developed by A. J. Ellis, Henry Sweet, Daniel Jones, and Parsi. Since its creation, the IPA has undergone a number of revisions. After major revisions and expansions in 1900 and 1932, the IPA remained unchanged until the IPA Kiel Convention in 1989. A minor revision took place in 1993 with the addition of 4 letters for mid-central vowels and the removal of letters for voiceless implosives. The alphabet was last revised in May 2005 with the addition of a letter for a labiodental flap. Apart from the addition and removal of symbols, changes to the IPA have consisted largely in renaming symbols and categories and in modifying typefaces. Extensions to the IPA for speech pathology were created in 1990 and officially adopted by the International Clinical Phonetics and Linguistics Association in 1994. Description. The general principle of the IPA is to provide one letter for each distinctive sound, although this practice is not followed if the sound itself is complex. This means that it does not normally use combinations of letters to represent single sounds, the way English does with sh, th and eng, or single letters to represent multiple sounds the way x represents ks or z in English. There are no letters that have context-dependent sound values as do hard and soft (c.g. in several European languages. Finally, the IPA does not usually have separate letters for two sounds if no known language makes a distinction between them, a property known as selectiveness. Among the symbols of the IPA, 107 letters represent consonants and vowels, 31 diacritics are used to modify these, and 19 additional signs indicate suprasegmental qualities such as length, tone, stress, and intonation. These are organized into a chart. The chart displayed here is the official chart is posted at the website of the IPA. Letter forms. The letters chosen for the IPA are meant to harmonize with the Latin alphabet. For this reason, most letters are either Latin, Greek, or modifications thereof. Some letters are neither. For example, the letter denoting the glottal stop has the form of a dotless question mark, and derives originally from an apostrophe. A few letters, such as that of the voiced pharyngeal fricative, were inspired by other writing systems. Despite its preference for harmonizing with the Latin script, the International Phonetic Association has occasionally admitted other letters. For example, before 1989, the IPA letters for click consonants were T and, all of which were derived either from existing IPA letters, or from Latin and Greek letters. However, except for, none of these letters were widely used among Khoisanists or Bantuists, and as a result they were replaced by the more widespread symbols, and at the IPA Kiel Convention in 1989. Although the IPA diacritics are fully featural, there is little systemicity in the letter forms. A retroflex articulation is consistently indicated with a right swinging tail, as in DSN, and implosion by a top hook BDG, but other pseudo-featural elements are due to haphazard derivation and coincidence. For example, all nasal consonants but uvula are based on the form N, M, M, N, 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 N. However, the similarity between M and N is a historical accident. N and N are derived from ligatures of G, N and Eng, and M is an ad hoc imitation of N. Some of the new letters were ordinary Latin letters turned 180 degrees, such as EJ. This was easily done in the era of mechanical typesetting, and had the advantage of not requiring the casting of special type for IPA symbols. Capital letters. Full capital letters are not used as IPA symbols. They are, however, often used for archive phonemes and for natural classes of phonemes. Such usage is not part of the IPA or even standardized, and may be ambiguous between authors, but it is commonly used in conjunction with the IPA. Capital letters are also basic to the voice quality symbols, sometimes used in conjunction with the IPA. As wildcards, C for consonant and V for vowel are ubiquitous. Other common capital letter symbols are T for tone, N for nasal, F for fricative, G for glide or for semivowel liquid, P for plosive, S for sibilant, L for liquid, H for click, A for low vowel, U for rounded vowel, and B, D, J, K, Q, Phi, H for labial, alveolar, post-alveolar or palatal, velar, uvula, pharyngeal, and glottal, respectively, and X for anything. For example, the possible syllable shapes of Mandarin can be abstracted as ranging from V to CVN. The letters can be modified with IPA diacritics, for e.g. C for adjective, C for implosive, NC, C for prenasalized consonant, A for nasal vowel, S for voice sibilant, N for voiceless nasal, PF for affricate, and D for dental consonant. In speech pathology, they may represent indeterminate sounds, and superscripted when weakly articulated, a weak indeterminate alveolar, a weak indeterminate velar, etc. Typical examples of archiphonemic use of capital letters are I for the Turkish harmonic vowel set, IYU, and D for the conflated flapped middle consonant of American English writer and rider. V, F and C have different meanings as voice quality symbols, where they stand for voice, falsetto, and creak. They may take diacritics that indicate what kind of voice quality and utterance has, and may be used to extract a suprasegmental feature that occurs on all susceptible segments in a stretch of IPA. For instance, the transcription of Scott-scalar cat and cats can be made more economical by extracting the suprasegmental labialization of the words V and V. Typography and iconicity. The International Phonetic Alphabet is based on the Latin alphabet, using as few non-Latin forms as possible. The association created the IPA so that the sound values of most consonant letters taken from the Latin alphabet would correspond to international usage. Hence, the letters B, D, F, H, K, L, M, N, P, S, T, V, W, and Z have the values used in English, and the vowel letters from the Latin alphabet correspond to the sound values of Latin, is like the vowel in machine, is as in rule, etc. Other letters may differ from English, but are used with these values in other European languages, such as J, R, and Y. This inventory was extended by using small capital and cursive forms, diacritics and rotation. There are also several symbols derived or taken from the Greek alphabet, though the sound values may differ. For example, V is a vowel in Greek, but an only indirectly related consonant in the IPA. For most of these, subtly different glyph shapes have been devised for the IPA, namely, and V, which are encoded in Unicode separately from the parent Greek letters, though one of them theta is not, while Greek beta and chi are generally used for and. The sound values of modified Latin letters can often be derived from those of the original letters. For example, letters with a rightward-facing hook at the bottom represent retroflex consonants, and small capital letters usually represent uvular consonants. Apart from the fact that certain kinds of modification to the shape of a letter generally correspond to certain kinds of modification to the sound represented, there is no way to deduce the sound represented by a symbol from its shape, nor even any systematic relation between signs and the sounds they represent. Beyond the letters themselves, there are a variety of secondary symbols which aid in transcription. Diacritic marks can be combined with IPA letters to transcribe modified phonetic values as secondary articulations. There are also special symbols for suprasegmental features such as stress and tone that are often employed. Types of transcription. There are two principal types of brackets used to set off IPA transcriptions, are used with phonetic notations, possibly including details of the pronunciation that may not be used for distinguishing words in the language being transcribed, but which the author nonetheless wishes to document. Slashes are used for phonemic notations, which note only features that are distinctive in the language, without any extraneous detail. Dot. For example, while the P sounds of pin and spin are pronounced slightly differently in English, the difference is not meaningful in English. Thus, phonemically the words are PN and SPN, with the same P phoneme. However, to capture the difference between them, they can be transcribed phonetically as and. Other conventions are less commonly seen. Double slashes, pipes, double pipes, or braces may be used around a word to denote its underlying structure, more abstract even than that of phonemes. See morphophonology for examples. Double square brackets are used for extra precise transcription. They indicate that a letter has its cardinal IPA value. For example, A is a low front vowel, rather than the perhaps slightly different value that may be used to transcribe in a particular language. Thus, two vowels transcribed for easy legibility as and may be clarified as actually being E and E, may be more precisely TH. Angle brackets are used to clarify that the letters represent the original orthography of the language. language, or sometimes an exact transliteration of a non-Latin script, not the IPA, or within the IPA that the letters themselves are indicated, not the sound values that they carry. For example, pin and spin would be seen for those words which do not contain the E sound of the IPA letter I. Italics are perhaps more commonly used for this purpose when full words are being written, but may not be sufficiently clear for individual letters and digraphs. Braces are used for prosodic notation. See extensions to the International Phonetic Alphabet for examples in that system. Are used for indistinguishable utterances. They are also seen for silent articulation, where the expected phonetic transcription is derived from lip reading, and with periods to indicate silent pauses. For example, double parentheses indicate obscured or unintelligible sound, as in or two audible but unidentifiable syllables. Handwritten forms. IPA letters have handwritten forms designed for use in manuscripts, and when taking field notes they are occasionally seen in publications when the printer did not have fonts that supported IPA, and the IPA was therefore filled in by hand. Modifying the Ipa Chart. The International Phonetic Alphabet is occasionally modified by the Association. After each modification, the Association provides an updated, simplified presentation of the alphabet in the form of a chart. Not all aspects of the alphabet can be accommodated in a chart of the size published by the IPA. The alveolo-palatal and epiglottal consonants, for example, are not included in the consonant chart for reasons of space rather than of theory, and the lateral flap would require an additional row for that single consonant, so they are listed instead under the catch-all block of other symbols. The indefinitely large number of tone letters would make a full accounting impractical even on a larger page, and only a few examples are shown. The procedure for modifying the alphabet of the chart is to propose the change in the Journal of the IPA. Reactions to the proposal may be published in the same as subsequent issues of the journal. A formal proposal is then put to the Council of the IPA, which is elected by the membership for further discussion and a formal vote. Only changes to the alphabet chart that have been approved by the Council can be considered part of the official IPA. Nonetheless, many users of the alphabet, including the leadership of the association itself, make personal changes or additions in their own practice, either for convenience in working on a particular language, or because they object to some aspect of the official version. Usage. Although the IPA offers over 160 symbols for transcribing speech, only a relatively small subset of these will be used to transcribe any one language. It is possible to transcribe speech with various levels of precision. A precise phonetic transcription, in which sounds are described in a great deal of detail, is known as a narrow transcription. A coarser transcription which ignores some of this detail is called the broad transcription. Both are relative terms, and both are generally enclosed in square brackets. Broad phonetic transcriptions may restrict themselves to easily heard details, or only to details that are relevant to the discussion at hand, and may differ little if at all from phonemic transcriptions, but they make no theoretical claim that all the distinctions transcribed are necessarily meaningful in the language. For example, the English word little may be transcribed broadly using the IPA as, and this broad transcription is a more or less accurate description of many pronunciations. A narrower transcription may focus on individual dialectical details. In General American, in Cockney, or in Southern U.S. English, it is customary to use simpler letters, without many diacritics, in phonemic transcriptions. The choice of IPA letters may reflect reflect the theoretical claims of the author, or merely be a convenience for typesetting. For instance, in English, either the vowel of pick or the vowel of peak may be transcribed as I, and neither is identical to the vowel of the French word piquer, which is also generally transcribed I. That is, letters between slashes do not have absolute values, something true of broader phonetic approximations as well. An arrow transcription may, however, be used to distinguish them. Linguists. Although IPA is popular for transcription by linguists, American linguists often alternate use of the IPA with Americanist phonetic notation, or use the IPA together with some non-standard symbols, for reasons including reducing the error rate on reading handwritten transcriptions, or avoiding perceived awkwardness of IPA in some situations. The exact practice may vary somewhat between languages and even individual researchers, so authors are generally encouraged to include a chart or other explanation of their choices. Language study. Some language study programs use the IPA to teach pronunciation. For example, in Russia and mainland China, textbooks for children and adults for studying English and French consistently use the IPA. English teachers and textbooks in Taiwan tend to use the Kenyan and Knot system, a slight typographical variant of the IPA. Dictionaries. English. Many British dictionaries, including the Oxford English Dictionary and some learners' dictionaries such as the Oxford Advanced Learners' Dictionary and the Cambridge Advanced Learners' Dictionary, now use the International Phonetic Alphabet to represent the pronunciation of words. However, most American volumes use one of a variety of pronunciation respelling systems, intended to be more comfortable for readers of English. For example, respelling systems in many American dictionaries use Y for IPA and SH for IPA, reflecting common representations of those sounds in written English, using only letters of the English Roman alphabet and variations of them, and represents the pair of sounds in grasshopper. Other languages. The IPA is also not universal among dictionaries in languages other than English. Monolingual dictionaries of languages with generally phonemic orthographies generally do not bother with indicating the pronunciation of most words, and tend to use respelling systems for words with unexpected pronunciations. Dictionaries produced in Israel use the IPA rarely and sometimes use the Hebrew script for transcription of foreign words. Monolingual Hebrew dictionaries use pronunciation respelling for words with unusual spelling. For example, the Even Shoshan dictionary respells as because this word uses kamatz katan. Bilingual dictionaries that translate from foreign languages into Russian usually employ the IPA, but monolingual Russian dictionaries occasionally use pronunciation respelling for foreign words. For example, Ozhegov's dictionary adds in brackets for the French word to indicate that the does not I to the. The IPA is more common in bilingual dictionaries, but there are exceptions here too. Mass-market bilingual Czech dictionaries, for instance, tend to use the IPA only for sounds not found in the Czech language. Standard orthographies and case variants IPA letters have been incorporated into the alphabets of various languages, notably via the Africa alphabet in many sub-Saharan languages such as Hausa, Fula, Akan, Gbe languages, Manding languages, Lingala, etc. This has created the need for capital variants. For example, Kabylie of northern Togo has D, NN, VV. These, and others, who are supported by Unicode, but appear in Latin ranges other than the IPA extensions. In the IPA itself, however, only lowercase letters are used. The 1949 edition of the IPA handbook indicated that an asterisk may be prefixed to indicate that a word is a proper name, but this convention has not been included in recent editions. Classical singing. IPA has widespread use among classical singers for preparation, especially among English-speaking singers who are expected to sing in a variety of foreign languages. Opera librettos are authoritatively transcribed in IPA, such as Nico Kastel's volumes and Timothy Cheek's book Singing in Czech. Opera singers' ability to read IPA was used by the site Visual Thesaurus, which employed several opera singers to make recordings for the 150,000 words and phrases in VT's lexical database. For the vocal stamina, attention to the details of enunciation, and most of all, knowledge of IPA.